What I'm about to share isn't just a story of betrayal it's the story of how my life was torn apart and how I rebuilt it. Not as a victim, but as a woman who refused to be broken. For the longest time, I believed I had it all. A loving husband, a thriving business we built together, and a future that seemed secure. Daniel and I met in college. We were young, ambitious, and completely in sync, so I believed. After graduating, we got married and launched a small consulting firm that grew beyond our dreams. We bought a beautiful home, traveled the world, and made memories I thought were the foundation of forever. But I was wrong. While I supported him through every late night, every deal, every ounce of stress, he was building a second life behind my back. And I, blinded by loyalty, ever saw it coming. It all began to unravel one rainy Tuesday. I came home early from a canceled client meeting. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked a few houses down. Odd, but I ignored it. Inside, the house was too quiet until I heard faint voices upstairs. Daniel had told me he was working from home alone. Something was off. I crept upstairs, every step heavier than the last. Our bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the mirror's reflection, I saw him, and he wasn't alone. A young woman stood close to close. Her hand rested on his shoulder, her posture far too intimate to be professional. I didn't make a sound, simply turned around, walked downstairs, and sat in silence, knowing everything had changed. But I didn't confront him, not yet, because if I did, he'd twist the truth. He'd lie, gaslight, deny. Needed evidence. I needed power. I needed a plan. In the weeks that followed, I became someone else entirely. A strategist. I hired a private investigator, something I never thought I'd do. And what he uncovered broke my heart all over again. Romantic dinners, weekend getaways disguised as business trips, even a rented apartment in the city. The intern's name was Olivia. And their affair was not a fling, it was a full-blown relationship. But what shattered me most wasn't the infidelity. It was the ease with which he betrayed me. As if I was just background noise to his real life. As if our marriage, our company, our dreams meant nothing. I cried a lot, but not for long, because soon grief turned to fury. And that fury gave me clarity. If Daniel thought he could discard me and walk away unscathed, he was gravely mistaken. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation. I wanted justice. Clean, calculated, and devastating. First, I quietly began shifting control of the business. I handled the finances. He never paid attention to the details. I strengthened client relationships, flagged inconsistencies in our accounting, and started separating my name from any liability tied to him. At the same time, I collected evidence, X-decks, emails, receipts, and financial records. Every luxury hotel bill, every gift paid for with company funds then. I found the right attorney, Mrs. Reynolds Sharp, strategic and not easily rattled. She called my evidence airtight. And together, we built a legal case that would not only protect me, but dismantle Daniel's entire foundation. At home, I played my role. I smiled, cooked, laughed. Daniel never suspected a thing. He thought he was untouchable. He thought his secret would stay buried. What he didn't realize was that every careless move he made added more weight to the avalanche headed his way, and when it hit, it wouldn't just end the affair. It would end his version of our life, for good. Gift chodal suites, luxury spas. The amounts were cleverly disguised, but with thorough financial audit. The discrepancy spasm glaring. I also learned that Olivia, though young and attractive, was far from innocent. She had ambitions of her own and had been subtly manipulating Daniel into making promises. Of leaving me, of handing over part of the busyness, of starting a new life together. Everything was settled. She was as much a part of the betrayal as he was, and I made sure to include her name in every piece of documented evidence. When I finally had everything in place, is it the final phase of my plan into motion. I scheduled a board meeting under the pretense of discussing expansion of Portis. Daniel, eager to boast about his supposed leadership, agreed without hesitation what he didn't know us, that my attorney and a forensic accountant would also be present or met with. Irrefutable evidenceth. Day of the meeting arrived. Daniel walked into the conference room with his usual swagger. Flashing his charming smile, he greeted everyone unaware that the very ground beneath his feet was about to collapse as the meeting progressed. I allowed him to speak, first to lay out his grand vision for the company. He spoke with such confidence, as if he were untouchable, and then it was me turn. I calmly presented the financial discrepancies one by one. The room grew land. The board members' faces turned from curiosity to shock. Daniel's confident demeanor began to crack. My attorney handed out neatly organized folders containing the evidence, bank statements, texts, surveillance, photos. Daniel tried to defend himself, stammering excuses, blaming accountants, even suggesting that someone was framing him, but the evidence was overwhelming his affair. His embezzlement, this blatant breach of fiduciary duty, everything was laid bare. The board voted unanimously to suspend him pending further investigation. After the meeting, Daniel confronted me privately, his face flushed with anger and fear. He accused me of betrayal, offsetting him up. I looked him in the eyes and said, "No, Daniel, I didn't betray you. It's betrayed me. You made your choices, is simply held you accountable." For the first time in our entire marriage, Daniel was speechless, and that was only the beginning. After that meeting, Daniel's world began to crumble. Piece by piece, the board suspended him indefinitely, and the firm's legal team initiated a full-scale investigation of his financial misconduct. What once was his kingdom quickly became a cold and familiar battlefield where his list could no longer protect him. I watched as the man who had so confidently betrayed now stumbled, desperately trying to control the damage, but it was far too late for that. At home, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Daniel barely spoke to me, often locking himself in his study or leaving for hours without saying a word. Tension was thick, but I maintained me calm demeanor. Every move he made was being documented. My attorney had advised to let him self-destruct on his own end. That's exactly what was happening. The investigation revealed even more damning information. Daniel had not only missed company funds, but had also falsified some financial statements to hide losses from a failed sediment, an investment he never once mentioned to me. Apparently, he had promised Olivia a share in a startup venture that never took off, using our firm's resources as collateral. The depth of his greed was astonishing. Olivia began to panic without financial support Daniel had promised her. She quickly realized that her position was far more precarious than she imagined. She tried to contact him once, probably in an attempt to manipulate the situation or plead her innocence, but I refused to engage. I had an interest in hearing her rehearse Adexis. She was part of the betrayal, and like Daniel, she would face the consequences of her choices behind the scenes. I strengthened my own position within the company. Many employees had grown disillusioned by Danielle's leadership, and they naturally gravitated toward me. As I stepped into a more authoritative role, I treated them with respect, listened to their concerns, and reassured them that the firm's future was secure under my leadership. The board's wary of choosing sides now saw me the stabilizing force the company desperately needed. Legally, Daniel was fussing mounting pressure. His lawyer attempted to negotiate a settlement to avoid criminal charges, but my attorney was unrelenting. Embezzlement, the falsification of documents, the breach of fiduciary duty, all of it was serious enough to warrant severe consequences. But my goal was then to see him behind bars. I wanted something far more painful for him to lose everything he valued during the divorce proceedings. Daniel tried to play the victim. He accused me of setting him up, of conspiring to destroy his career and reputation. His arrogance was still intact, even as his empire collapsed around him, but the evidence spoke louder than his words. Every financial document, every surveillance photo, every message geek shunged with Olivia was presented on court. There was no room for doubt. The judge saw through his lies easily. I was awarded full ownership of the Campaneth house and a significant portion of his remaining assets. The court D. Amity's actions as deliberate misconduct stripping came of any claim to the busyness we had built together as Thurling was announced. I glanced at him expecting anger or defiance, but all I saw was defeat. But my revenge was not yet complete. Publicly, I maintained a composed and professional image. The media picked up on the scandal, but I refused interviews, choosing instead to let my actions speak for themselves. I continued running the company Cecily, proving that I was not only capable, but far more competent than Daniel ever was. Clients respected my leadership and new opportunities began to pour in. The firm was thriving under me, guidance, and my reputation only grew stronger. Privately, I knew Daniel was struggling. Word spread that he had been blacklisted by several major firms. His professional network evaporated, and his personal finances dwindled rapidly. Olivia, sensing that the sinking ship could no longer serve her ambitions, abandoned him without hesitations, moved on to another wealthy businessman, leaving Daniel alone to face the mess he had created. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Daniel had moved into a small apartment far from luxurious lifestyle he once flaunted. As expensive suits, lavish vacations, and high-profile connections were all gone. He had become a shadow of the man he was living in quiet desperation. Everything I never gloated I didn't need to his downfall was the result of his own actions, and watching him lose everything he valued was far more satisfying than any outburst of anger ever could be. Still, there was one final piece to complete the puzzlesome thing that would ensure he never found a way back into the business world. Through my attorney, I filed a formal complaint with the state's financial law board. Given the extensive evidence of his misconduct, they launched their own investigation. After months, AFRO viewed Daniel's professional license were revoked. He was barred from holding any executive position in any licensed financial institution for the foreseeable future. That was the final nail in the coffin. By the time everything was settled, nearly 2 years had passed since I first discovered his betrayal. It had been a long and exhausting journey, but emerged stronger, wiser, and far more resilient than I ever thought possible. My business was thriving. My reputation was untarnished, and most importantly, I had reclaimed my dignity. Friends often asked me if I ever regretted not taking more aggressive revenge, not destroying him entirely, but I always answered the same way. True revenge isn't about rager public humiliation. True revenge is watching someone lose everything they once valued while you rise above their failures, untouched by the darkness they tried to pull you into. Daniel made his choices, and he paid the price for them. Is simply made sure the truth came to light. As for me, I finally found the time to pursue my passion for writing in my spare moments. I began working on my first novel, a story about betrayal, resilience, and redemption. Writing became my therapy, allowing me to process the pain and transform it into something beautiful. The experience taught me many things. It taught me that trust is fragile, that love without respect is hollow, and that sometimes the most powerful revenge is not to destroy your enemy, but to build a life so full, so complete that their absence Becco Maserve and Daniel's name eventual life did. From conversations, people stopped asking about him, and when his name did come up, it was usually followed by a sigh or a shake of the head. He became a cautionary tale in our industry, an uncompromising man brought down by his arrogance and greed, and Emily, stood firm, not as a victim of his betrayal, but as the woman who refused to let it define her. Months turned into years, and the storm that once threatened to destroy my life had completely passed. My business flourished beyond anything Daniel and I had ever dreamed. Clients respected not only my professionalism, also admired my strength in navigating through betrayal and adversity with dignity. Daniel, on the other hand, had faded into obscurity. Last I heard, he was working consulting jobs far below his previous stature, trying to rebuild something out of the ashes of his shattered career. But the industry never forgot Heist's actions. His reputation was permanently tainted, and no serious firm would trust them again. Olivia was long gone, chasing new opportunities with other wealthy men leaving. Daniel, too, faced the consequences alone. I no longer thought of him. With anger or pain, strangely, I felt nothing. Gat all the love I once had for him had been replaced by a deep sense of peace and closure. I had rebuilt not just my business, but my entire life. Stronger, independent, and wiser, I published a novel. To my surprise, it became a bestseller, resonating with countless readers who found strength in the story of betrayal and redemption. Many reached out to share their own experiences, thanking me for giving them hope in helping others. I healed even more standing on my balcony, one evening, looking out over the city skyline. I finally felt free. The pain, the betrayal, heartbreak, all of it was now just a distant memory. I had turned my great pain into my greatest strength. Daniel thought his betrayal would break me. Bhutan, the end, it only made me unbreakable. Thanks for watching. Bye.